ma'am. I think any project, before undertaking any project, we have to do this an economical analysis, the risk analysis, whether it is economically feasible to undertake that project or not. Means before any project, also we have to think about economics. So I think it is very necessary to learn economics. We have to make our budget and all of the project.
Yes.
That is why without economics in place, I think any management project cannot be undertaken.
Yes, very much accurate. And please don't call me ma'am. Your answer was right. Yes, Anirudh?
Hi, am I audible, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so economics need not be just restricted to business, but to know the things, the policies that are happening around, that government is, launching, and how they affect us on a daily level. So that's why we need to know economics.
Very much. That's macro. Yes. So Shruth, if I'm able to spell it correct.
Hello, ma'am. Hello,
Nisha.
Isha. Sorry. I come from a zoology background, and we have this ecology term, which means the interconnection between different species and stuff. I could relate economics as it would tell me about the interconnection between various different business aspects.
Nice logic. Yeah, I mean, it has a derivation of economics. Yes, it makes sense. 1 second. Yes, Tanmay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. So if I talk about the importance of economics, based on the past studies that I have done, one thing that I can relate to business is the law of supply, the law of demand, and a few other specific laws in economics which help us in running a business administration. So from a business perspective, I think it's very important to learn about these certain concepts in economics, which can help us excel.
Yes. And last, maybe Krishna. I hope I'm not forgotten. Yeah, Krishna.
Yeah. Hi, Isha. Hello.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, I think economics is the study of allocation of resources which are limited to satisfy our needs, which are unlimited, be it economy, company, or any level. We should study this allocation of resources.
Very much true. So why are we still studying economics even when it's not a part of it? Because it's going to get affected to you in any terms. So as Krishna just mentioned recently, it's like study of limited resources. And while we are talking about limited resources, right? The resources are scarce and you have to come up with the best possible thing. And as a manager, you'll be given an X amount of thing. Maybe as an HR, you have X amount of human resources. As a finance, head, or maybe a CFO, you have limited amount of finance with you, but you have to make the most out of it. Similar thing with marketing, similar thing with your operations. So you're trying to understand with this same particular resources, how are you going to make the decisions that will be helpful to you in getting the most out of it. So economics has been derived from a Greek word called oikonomia, which is in household management. So while we're talking about household management, it includes everything, right from your demand, right from your supply, or maybe how are you making decisions with respect to the different conditions that are being given to you. So, and it assumes a very important thing in economic is that people will take rational decisions. So at a point of time, if X is happening, a rational person would take Y. It is very much similar to a science, and hence it is also known as a social science, because you have a cause and that's how there would be a similar effect, though there could be exceptions to everything in economics because it deals with humans, but there is usually a theory that an X will follow a Y. So reasons to know, so because again the resources are scarce and you have to achieve the goals, and you will be asking these questions like, will the economy pick up next year? So something like the budget has come. The manager started asking questions. If the economy is going to pick up next year, should I invest in a particular thing or not? Right now, maybe say the stock market has a shift from an FMCG to technology because it is going up. So you have limited money. You have, say, for example, 10,000 rupees, and you have to allocate it to, like, few stocks that you want. Maybe you will try to allocate in technology right now because it's going to pick up faster in the limited resource of money that you have right now at a particular period of time. And what will be the effect of global economic scenario on my business? Say Elon Musk has become number one, the richest person. How is it going to affect you and your business? That's an economic scenario. So majorly economics is divided into two parts. One is your micro and one is your macro. So micro is study of individual character, firm, nation. So all of these, that's me, that's Nakshatra, that's Anirudh. So studying my particular, demand, my particular logic of buying things would fall under micro. But when all of us are coming together and we're going to buy it, like say, for example, all of us are from different IIMs or different B schools. So when all of us are going to have a demand for, say, this macroeconomics textbook, so that is a concept of macro. Like all the B schools are together demanding for a particular product or a service. So over here in micro, usually the actors make the allocation of scarce resource, whereas in macro, group of actors have taken decisions and the impact of such decisions happens across the economy. Let me know if you guys don't understand at any point of time. Just raise your hand and I'll unmute you, or maybe you can put it in the chat. Chat is a bit difficult for me to understand. Not getting the chats. I don't know why. तो आना तो चाहिए था. Okay, can you repeat? Do not get macro. Okay, actors means individuals. So individuals like you, me. Over here, actors also means, so if you're talking about the micro and the macro part, the actors means the individual like us, the firm, like as in only one particular firm, say Amazon, or maybe one particular firm like HUL or something like that, or nation as a whole, which is say India. So while you're talking about microeconomics, you're talking only about one particular thing at a time. And how will this particular character react to the resource which is given to you? So in micro, actors make the allocation of scarce resource. I will try to cover in the next sessions, which I'm going to explain ahead. So in micro, we usually are going to cover the demand and supply and the diminishing marginal utility. So in that particular type, you will understand that you have a few resource and how, as an individual, you're going to make decisions on that. Will you buy that product or not? Till what point will you buy that particular product? So those are the things wherein you're trying to allocate your money, which is a scarce resource, to another scarce resource, which is going to be your products, maybe like fruits or something, which we will cover ahead. And okay, in the macro. Macro is like finance ministry. No. Finance ministry is just one particular part. Finance ministry handles macro a bit, but let me just correct. And macro is not about decision making. Macro is also effects of those decisions. So, okay, let me just come. So you guys must have heard about this thing. The GDP was GDP is growing negative, not even growing. The GDP of India has gone negative, right? Or maybe some headlines that you guys have been hearing about. Okay, so that is all the macro level. Yes, negative 23%. Okay, I'll relate to practical real life example. Okay. So, say for example, the news had come, the GDP of India has gone to negative 23%, right? So, what are we talking about? When we're talking about GDP, GDP is the aggregate income of the entire nation. So, when we're trying to even understand GDP, which I'll explain. Okay. I'm not sure. Will the recording be available? Shelly or Pooja, somebody's there. Kushang, if you do not understand something, do let me know. I'll go back to it. So, Kushang, we just discussed about why are we studying. Okay, they are available. So, okay, sure. Uh, so while we're discussing about macro and GDP, right? So in GDP, we're talking about uh, the income of all the individuals in the nation. Okay. So we're talking about everyone's income. So for example, I'm earning 10,000. Nakshatra is earning 20,000. Anirudh is earning 30,000. Sushruth is earning 40,000. Tanmay is earning 50,000. So overall, if we like five of us are India as a nation, okay, in a very hypothetical situation, only 5 individuals are staying in a nation. So five of us, the total GDP would be 2,10,000 rupees, right? So that is the study of aggregate as an entire nation. Now, if I have to discuss micro, that would only be my particular income, which is 10,000 rupees, or maybe Nakshatra, which is 20,000 rupees. So those are the difference. So micro, you're understanding only one particular individual. In macro, you're going to understand everyone as an aggregate, as a total of and the thing which is different in the second point that I mentioned was in the first, since individuals are going to take decision. So as an individual, I might take a particular decision to buy this particular pen. Okay. When I'm buying these pens, I'm trying to create a demand over in the market. And Nakshatra is a supplier of these particular pens, right? So what Nakshatra will do, he'll understand that these pens are in uh, demand. So he might just try to increase the production of it, or he'll try to take certain actions, which will again have impact on the entire economy. Now, if the supply has increased to greater extent, he might have to reduce the price because now demand is not there as compared to supply. So he might have to come down. Or maybe usually in macro, what these guys at B school expect us are the policies and certain what do you call policy regulations which are given by the government, and how is it going to impact us or the firms, so or maybe the country as an overall. We're trying to understand, okay, so you are the producer of this particular pen, and you need to understand how would any consumer in the first place try to react to your uh, product or your your service that you would be giving. So in micro, you would try to understand those individual characters, and at the macro, you'll try to understand that the policies or the regulations that have come into the place by the government or these regulatory bodies, how is it going to affect your organization. This is very transactional in nature. uh, at the business school, they'll try to explain you in very quantitative method of how is it going to affect, like if you have one particular change in any decisions, by how much amount of money is it going to affect you. I mean, that you learn of course when you come to B school, but we'll just try to do a overall lookup. And just to tell you of what is going to be the agenda of the session is, first we'll try to understand why are we going to study, what are the two major aspects, one is micro and macro. We'll try to understand what are the B school panelists trying to expect out of you, even if you are an engineer. These are some basic things that they are expecting out of you. In both of them, I have a list of 2-3 things that you are supposed to know, and we'll cover very basic things. I'm not trying to get into very much details because it might not come to everyone. They may majorly focus on your uh, area of specialization, but just in case if they go to economics, you're expected to know basics of economics. As a person who's working or as a person who's not working, you had economics in your 10th standard or something approximately. So basic, you're supposed to know about it. So what are you supposed to know in micro? One is the demand and supply curve, which is the most famous one. And one is the second one is diminishing marginal utility. The third thing could be the market structure, but they do not expect so much a person will know about market structure. But I'll just cover that briefly, and then we'll go to macro. So the demand curve. So before trying to understand the demand curve, let's try to understand what is demand. So if I say that, you know, I have a demand for BMW, that will not count as a demand, because it will also check whether I can afford that demand. Sorry, whether I could afford that car, BMW, right? Right now my salary is 0 rupees. So I mean, everyone wants a BMW car, but am I able to afford as well? So how does demand is being calculated is the willingness to pay plus the ability to buy that particular product, right? So I have right now, for example, I can buy like, you know, 10,000 such pens, but do I want to really purchase that? No, like, you know, I don't want these pens, like at least 10,000. So that will not be counted as a demand. If I want two pens which cost 20 rupees and I also have 20 rupees with me, then that would be counted as a demand. So also related to the money aspect, it could also be counted whether you can have a secondary source uh, to get those particular resources. So if I can get say a bank loan or maybe money from a third party, that could also be counted, because if you have that credit worthiness. Also, this is all more of a subjective thing. It's not like, you know, they kind of take a survey and all of these things of few individuals to understand the demand aspect. You cannot really understand the demand of say a particular pen at a particular point of time across the country. So they take a survey of a few individuals to understand the demand, and they do it over a period of time. So it's not something that, you know, it's not something a vague concept. If you go for market research, which is the first point of any business aspect, this is where your demand supply curve is going to come into play. So before you're trying to understand why are we going to study this and why somebody's coming and talking about this, you need to understand where is going, like, you know, where this concept is going to help you out. So over here, there's a very basic theory of demand. Like, you know, if you have more money, you will buy more product, right? But assuming that you have like, you know, your money is constant, like you're earning 10,000 a month, which is constant, which is your income. And you have a product that you want to really buy. Say, for example, in my clothes, in my view, it would be, say, clothes. Okay. So if the price of clothes are reducing, I can buy more products. I can buy more clothes. But if it has been increasing over a period of time, I have a limited amount of money which I can spend. So my demand will reduce. And on the contrary, if the amount is reducing, I can buy more. So my demand will go more. And there are these few assumptions that these guys make, which is ceteris paribus, which means that only one thing is going to change in the entire theory, which is your price, and everything else will remain constant. So your income will remain constant. The fashion will remain constant in this particular term. Your import, export, your government policies, your anything else, your other environment, your, you know, there is no what do you call catastrophe which is happening around, or anything, there's no promotion of yours happening, everything remaining constant. If the price reduces, your quantity demanded will increase, and vice versa. How the demand, like, you know, say for example, you are a manager, right? And there has been a constant demand for your product, but that could not help you to grow your what do you call, that will not help you to grow your business, right? And you cannot just keep on decreasing the price of your product to increase your demand in the market, because overall, if you see the net, it will almost remain the same. I mean, it might increase your market share to a bit, but it will not increase so much, right? So what is the second way in which you can now, like, uh, increase your demand, right? So there are two concepts. One is increase in demand, which is your this concept through which the price, only the prices are going to fluctuate. And the second thing is shift in the demand curve. So the demand curve entirely is going to shift towards left or towards right. So when will this happen? When anything except price is going to change. For example, there has been a really good year. Say 2020 was a really good year as assumption, and everyone has a good promotion and all of these things. So income of everyone has increased over a period of time, and now with the same same price, people can buy more. So from my salary has increased from 10,000 to 12,000. So with the same price, which is 12 rupees, I can buy more products. This is what the basic concept of shift in demand curve is. Shift in demand curve is more of an external concept rather than an internal concept. Uh, so not much that you as a manager can do, but you can try to capitalize on it. So for example, if there are two companies, say Amazon and Flipkart, taking a very real life example, and you come to know that there has been a promotion of people across the country, and you see the demand curve can shift it to the right side. Now if you're not able to come up with good promotion scheme or good attractive scheme to take your consumers, the shift in the demand curve can go to the other part also, that with the same price people will not buy. They might go from Amazon to Flipkart or Flipkart to Amazon. So your work as a manager would be to attract more people within the same range as well. So over here you can see that with the price of 12 rupees at the initial demand curve, the quantity demanded was 80 rupees. But when the demand curve shifted towards right, which is D2, the quantity demanded increased to 115. So you can calculate the profit that the company might have been able to earn. Just 1 second. Somebody raised their hand, right? Yes, Devyani. Yeah. Devyani?
Hello.
Yes.
Ma'am, shift in demand curve occurs when we give discounts or something like that, or only basis on the income?
So it could be income, it could be an environmental change. So for example, if you remember the 2001 earthquake which happened in Gujarat, okay.
Right.
So after that, a lot of people lost their businesses, a lot of people lost their income or something like that, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So because of that, now their income level has decreased and it is going to go down towards the left. So with the same particular income, now they'll be able to buy, their income reduced. So at the same price, now they will be buying less because their income has reduced. So the resources that they already had, the scarce resource, has also reduced it more.
Okay, ma'am.
Yes. So if the demand of any substitute changes, then also the demand curve will shift. So if a person like me who is very indifferent between tea and coffee, if the coffee price has reduced, I might shift from tea to coffee. So in that particular manner also, with the same this thing, I might shift it to the other part. New government policy very much. 1 second. Bandaru. I hope I have spelled it correct.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Like I would like to share this. Like due to this pandemic, there is a sudden increase in the quantity or like demand for the sanitizers and all. So it might reflect this, no? Like due to this
Yes.
pandemic, there is a sudden increase in the demand for the certain product. So it might result in the shift in the demand curve.
Yes. So the conditions that the environment